Welcome to the GameDev.tv Community Podcast. I'm your host KB, and I would like to introduce you to industry professionals and people who successfully made their path to the video game industry. I hope that you will enjoy the podcast and get useful tips that will bring you closer to achieving your dreams. Now, let's get right into the podcast. So welcome to the show, Andreas. This is the GameDev.tv podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah,
Kevin
no
Brandon.
So can you tell the community a little bit about who you are, so that way they get a little feel of who you are, and then we'll go from there?
Sure. I am Andrés Ortiz Suárez. I am a Mexican game programmer and designer. I'm currently one of the lead programmers at Airship Syndicate in Austin, Texas. And I focus a lot on game programming, design, kind of like the gestalt of the game, from music, audio, gameplay, all of the things, how they come together. I'm very big on getting all of the disciplines involved and kind of firing on all cylinders. I really want to make sure our projects are as robust as possible. We look a lot at at Airship, we focus a lot on having a really high level of polish in production. So it's a lot of focusing on the tiny details of things that you could just kind of ignore that, but if you make sure that the polish is there, then it winds up feeling a lot better. You get a better game out of the result.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. That's awesome. So it's been doing a lot then for the last couple of years.
Yeah. The Airship's been pretty busy. We're working on Ruin King, which is our third title in. Airship Airship came together in 2014, mm-hmm. but it didn't really, production on our first game, Battle Chasers, didn't really start until 2015 or 2016. So it's been 5 years and we're on 3 games, and it's a very, very fast timeline.
Yeah, that's a lot of games in that amount of time. Depends on the scope of the game, but still very polished. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of work. But before we get into all of the great stuff you've been working on, let's get started at the beginning, because a lot of the people at the GameDev community, .tv community, are very beginner, very aspiring game developers who are learning a little bit how to code games, but there's a gap between starting out and then working at a studio and working there for many years. So how did you get started with doing games? Let's get to the beginning. Did you have a favorite gameplay moment when you were younger that inspired you to make games later, or did you just chose it later on? When did you start getting into games?
There's so many good ones. I knew from very, very early on that I wanted to work on games. I remember playing Final Fantasy IV on my uncle's Super Nintendo. Yeah, it was a Super Nintendo game. And looking back on it now, playing that game again, I spent 4 or 5 hours playing the first 30 minutes of the game. I didn't know English very well, and I didn't know what I had to do, and I was really young, so I was I was 8, 9 when it came out. So he had it because he he was the cool uncle, right? So he had a Super Nintendo, and he was also really young, so it was 2018 when I was 8 or
oh wow.
So yeah,
you had a buddy, you're hey, what's up, let's play games.
Exactly. So he would show off and be look, I'm on the moon in Final Fantasy IV, and he would show me all the different cool stuff that he had, and I'd be wow, I want to play it. And I'd start the game and then spend hours on the first 30 minutes of the game, but I was just really taken aback by how magical it was, the exploration of it, the surprise of the narrative, being getting to the village only to find out that you've actually been carrying this bomb, and you spoilers for the first 30 minutes of Final Fantasy IV, but you blow up this village, and then you feel this guilt, and for an 8-year-old that's super impactful. Yeah, so I was wow, stories and games are really amazing, and this is so exciting. And I would play every game that I could. I learned to save money really early on. My parents would give me pocket money and stuff, and then they'd be why don't you ever go out with your friends? Why don't you go out for dinner or for the movies? And I was I'm saving up to buy a console and to buy games. And I would save every single dollar I could. I'd save lunch money just to be able to buy another game.
Wow.
Like I'd just go without eating any food.
No
But it
big
was
deal.
important. Yeah, and I mean, you don't need to eat. But like I really was looking for like trying to figure out and puzzle out in my head what I liked about them. And like at first it was just kind of like I love games. Games are great. But then at some point I got my hands on RPG Maker 95. This is before the official version. This is like back when there's the Japanese version, and then it was illegally translated into English and distributed as freeware by I think he was a Russian guy.
Okay.
And I think yeah, and like I think everybody on the internet just called him was it like Don Miguel?
Don Miguel.
Don Miguel. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like Don is in like Don Corneo or whatever is the title.
Yeah.
And so like he would like go in like kind of like figure out the keys for strings and then kind of like repackage the binary and distribute it out to like the greater internet.
Okay.
And so he was constantly working on like translating the RPG Maker engine so that other people on the internet could use it. And there was this huge community of people making games in RPG Maker, and then RPG Maker 2000 when that came out, or RPG Maker 98, then 2000, then 2003. So like that, while that was happening, like I was on the internet, like kind of getting used to the internet really young, meeting
So
with
what
like
was this, like 10 years old, 8 years old still?
Oh, I was like 12.
12, okay.
And I was pretending to be 18 because they were
Oh.
just like, no
You had
minor.
to, yeah, make those fake accounts.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
so
I'm
I had
22
to
years
like,
old.
I was totally a minor. I shouldn't have been doing that. I met some unsavory people that way, but
Oh.
like it was also an opportunity to kind of get in early and realize that like making games was actually really fun for me. More than just playing games, I really wanted to make them. And so I like, I would learn the tools and I would kind of really get into the process of like, okay, I'm scripting out the scene, then I would play it, and then I'd take notes about all of the things that went wrong. And I was just like, well, this character jumps in the wrong way and this animation plays wrong, and then I'd go back and I'd address it and I'd like fix it, and then I'd go through. And it was like the very earliest bug fixing because RPG Maker 2000 didn't really have any code. It was just like a bunch of, like steps basically, like a bunch of commands that you would like just put in. It would be like move this character 3
Kind of like Scratch, I guess.
Yeah, really basic. Really basic. Nowadays they actually have a like JavaScript and Python and a bunch of other stuff baked into the engine, but before it was just basically you would press a button and then you would put in like the commands. It was really easy for somebody who didn't have any game experience to be able to just make a game. And so like that was the first step. And then I like took some programming classes in high school because I was just like, I want to know a little bit more about like making games. And I realized like, hey, I can program. This is fine.
What programming class did they have in high school?
Oh, like the AP.
Intro?
Yeah, AP programming. So it was like intro to like Java. And
I wish I had it in high school.
I mean, it was good. I was really lucky that we had a programming class because I could have just done art or PE or whatever as an elective, but I got to pick programming, so that was pretty cool. And I did pretty well at the AP like test for Java, so like that made me feel pretty good. And then I went to art school, so that was interesting.
How'd that happen?
Well, I really wanted to do game design specifically. Like I love the design of games, and I like love art, and I draw and I paint like as a hobby, and so I went to SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design in Georgia, and I got a whole game design degree, in digital media and focus in game development, I think is the official title. But I specifically wanted to like learn game design, and I like at first I wasn't even sure like what like different disciplines there were, because like as somebody who was from Mexico, that's the other thing. I grew up in Mexico.
Oh wow, we got to talk more about that.
Yeah, I had to immigrate to the United States. So like going to college was actually a really big deal because I had to like go to college in the United States, and then like I had to like get a student visa, and then like after like college, getting in and staying in the United States was a challenge too. Because Lord knows getting a visa is hard, and
Yeah.
I imagine
Years
there's
and
people.
years.
Oh God, yeah. And I imagine there's people that listen to the podcast and they're in the community that also have to deal with this sort of thing, that are from all over the world. And yeah, getting into the United States isn't easy, you guys. Don't feel discouraged that like you feel like this is an insurmountable task. It's possible. It's just really, really hard.
Mhm.
And there's other people that's suffering with you.
How long does it usually take? Like,
Oh God, it depends, because like you could be on a work visa for a really long time, and a work visa doesn't really grant you like progress towards becoming a green card holder.
mm,
So somebody could
yeah.
hire you as like an employee with an
Mhm.
H-1B visa. That's like just an employment visa, and you could just be on that forever. And then like when they let you go, that's it. You're out. Like you just have to find
Could you
another.
imagine that? Like working for 10 years and like, all right, go home.
Yeah, no, I can totally imagine, because like that has happened to people that I know. It happened to my cousin,
Yeah.
like just like not that long ago. At some point a year ago, like his H-1B expired, it lapsed, and his company just didn't bother like really putting the priority on renewing it, and then they had to like deal with all of this like trying to get him rehired on a visa again. Like is just awful. It's an awful
Yeah.
experience as an immigrant. But I am very, very fortunate to be a green card holder now, so I'm a permanent resident. I can just work wherever I want. I'm at this point practically a citizen. I just don't have all of the same rights as a citizen.
Soon.
Yeah, soon. Hashtag
Yeah.
soon. But yeah, like, so I went to college. I went to art school. I learned like all of the basic fundamentals of art, painting, like contour, color theory, 3D design, all of the things. And then I graduated, and I needed to find a way to stay in the United States. So I worked for the college
Mhm.
as like a rental equipment manager. So
Okay.
I worked in like the rental equipment area of like the film and digital media like department of the school, and like I handled all of their equipment. I was their motion capture technician, so I know how to use the mocap
Well, you
studios.
got a lot of experience, yeah.
Do everything. And I worked for them for like a good year and a bit, and I kept looking for opportunities and being like, okay, what can I do to get into the games industry? It was really, really hard. There's very few people that want to hire somebody on with no experience. If you are an immigrant, that you need to get a work visa, and getting a work visa was a challenge. What I was fortunate for is that the school offered to give me an H-1B work visa
That's
if
good,
I
yeah.
work for them. And schools aren't really bound by the same kind of restrictions as other businesses in the United States. So they were able to get me a an H-1B at like a different timeline without like really having to deal with the cap. But it took them like a year to do it. They were like, "We'll just, we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Oh
Don't
gosh.
worry, we're getting to it." And then my temporary visa after being a student expired, and I couldn't work. And I was like supposed to leave the country, and they were like, wait, we're trying to get it resolved. And then they got me an H-1B like
Of
last
course they
minute.
waited the last
So
minute, of
of
course.
course they waited till the last minute. So yeah, like that's the kind of thing immigrants have to deal with. But they did come through. They gave me an H-1B, and I kept working for them for the school. And then I had an H-1B, which is transferable. So at some point, I got approached by one of the teachers at SCAD, actually, who was trying to start a business, and she was looking for designers. And she was actually looking for somebody else. She sent me the wrong. She sent me an email mistakenly, and she was just like, "Hey, do you want to work on design for this thing?" And I was just like, "Yes." And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, that was for somebody else." And I was just like, "But I'm really interested." And she said, "Oh, okay, well, let's meet for coffee." We met for coffee, and she had this really great idea of like this kind of like, this was during the times of early Facebook, and she was just like, what about like a safe like social networking experience for kids? And we like she had this whole thing where it was like a game, where it was like a game of like, you're my first social network, and you had like all the same kind of flash game like little tropes where you could like play something new every day, and kind of level up
Sounds
character.
interesting.
Yeah, no, it was really, really cute, and it was really like I felt really strongly about the idea, so I joined in on her team, and I like designed a bunch of like meta leveling up systems, and like figured out like what is it like when you're getting leveled up, like why do you want to level up, figuring out the player motivations, and then their like programmer quit. And they asked me like, "Hey, do you know any Flash programming? Because our programmer quit, and we really need a programmer." And I was like, "Well, I did a bunch of Java programming, and I've done some action scripts, so I should be able to figure it out." And now I'm here. Programmer. I went to art school, and here I am, a lead programmer at a game studio. I don't know how that works out, but that's pretty much how it went. It's just a lot of like opportunities kind of coming up at the right moment, and me being like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Why not? Yeah, sure, I'll
That's
work
really how it works, honestly, though.
Yeah, no, exactly. You just take what you can get.
Mm-hmm.
But you always look for the next thing. Like you take what you get, and then you're like, you know, I see the things I'm getting from this. What do I want next? And you kind of
always be moving, so that way you can catch the new things while enjoying what you have already.
Exactly. And I'm very fortunate that I've been able to move on. I know there's a lot of people that like, you know, they start working in QA and like, you know, they're doing great and they're really excelling, and then they don't get really, you know, moved up from QA.
Yeah.
And I really feel like lousy about that. I'm like constantly trying to find ways to like elevate the people around me and being like, well, you know, this person really has great ideas. We should give them a shot to be able to like design something. And like I keep looking for ways to do that for the people around me. And what I tell people is that, hey, if you're just stuck in QA forever and you don't want to be, look for the next thing. Just keep looking, keep trying, and like don't just sit and be like, I'll just wait for somebody to give me a shot. Look for the shot, because honestly, a lot of people are really bad about giving it to people, and there's people out there, hopefully, that believe that you should get a shot and that they're looking for you. So
I love that. It's just like the idea that like everybody has a chance, just prove themselves. Some people are more afraid than others, so give them an opportunity. And it's honestly
scary.
like it can be scary because a lot of programmers or anybody doing game dev can be a little introverted, and it's like, oh, well, like they'll see it eventually. It's like, no, like talk to them about it. And in fact, like what are some things you did to show that you can do certain things, you can elevate your position?
So there's a saying that is dress for the job you want, right? I'm sure everybody's heard that one, and I kind of take that to another level, and I act like the job I want, which isn't to say that like I like overstep my boundaries. Like I recognize when like somebody's above me, I respect their position, but like if there's things that I want to do, and there's like, you know, I want to like show that I'm capable of leadership, that I'm capable of doing the work, then I kind of just do it. Like I will see that there's an opportunity and be like, hey, you know, nobody is owning this particular feature, nobody's owning, you know, this particular process, and so I say like, hey, you know, I'll take care of it. And I go in and I take on the responsibility. I find ways to make it like easier for myself so that I don't get overwhelmed by like taking on too much work. And I like just start doing it to show to people like, hey, you know, you can trust me with stuff. You can keep giving me stuff. I will like take it to the end. I will note, like I'll make sure that when we get to the end of the game that it is in ship-worthy state. That's always one of the most important things, I think, is people's ability to ship a game is oftentimes how companies assess somebody's ability to like take on ownership and like move up in like the next step in their career. Like, you know, you can be somebody that kind of, you know, does the work. And, you know, they give you, you know, the tasks that you have to do and you do them. Or you can be the person that's constantly looking and being like, okay, what do we need next? Hey, nobody's called out this thing. This is a problem. We need to address it. And you also do it like, you know, tactfully, right? You don't like say like, I'm the new lead. I'm going to like, you know, do all the things.
Step over anybody's toes,
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to step on anybody's toes, but you do want like to show the lead, like, hey, you know, I'm watching out for you. I'm like here. I'm your friend. I'm on your side. Like you and I can do this, and like you can do that with like your direct superior. You can do that with like all of the other departments. And after a while, people start to like really like trust that you've got their best interests in mind, that you're reliable, that you're looking out for the game. Because those are the things, like looking out for the right things is a big part of being in a game studio. I feel like this isn't probably the same mentality that every game studio has, but it's like one that I adopt really firmly, and that is like you have three priorities. You have like your dedication to your employees, like the people underneath you and around you.
Yeah.
You have dedication to the players, and make sure that like you're catering to them, and make sure that you're making decisions that are going to benefit them. And you have a dedication to the game. Like, and you don't want to make decisions that are
really
going to like impact like or lower the quality of the game. And those are the three first top priorities for me. Like, there's other people, like, you got to watch out for the publisher. You have to like, keep third parties in check. Like, people will bring in NVIDIA, and NVIDIA will now be a partner, and so you have to like have them as a priority. But your first three priorities are always in order: the employees, the players, and the game. If you're making decisions that are going to compromise like the experience for players, then you need to find a way to be able to do that differently. Otherwise, you're sacrificing something you shouldn't, unless it's for the betterment of the employees. Because realistically, everybody's got to you got to keep making games. You don't want your team to fall apart after you.
No, it's true. Yeah, you need to make sure they're healthy, they're happy, they're not sleep deprived, and not like feeling stressed. Because then they'll produce the great work. If they feel anything else, they're gonna feel worried and can't be creative and won't come on. Yeah. So exactly. So it's like leadership's a huge thing that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about. And I've heard like if you want like look at the recent events with like Anthem, or there's even problems with management in like huge companies. It's like leadership's a problem in all levels. Leadership of yourself, leadership of small teams, and leadership of big teams, because then you're going to get giant, colossal games that cost tons of money and fail. You'll get smaller teams who have miserable employees because the leadership wasn't good. Like, leadership is one of the most important things. And I'm curious to learn how you learned all these different things. Was it through experience? Was it through books? Was it through just school? Like, how did you learn to be this type of person, or like think this way?
Honestly, like a lot of it comes from just emulating the people that are around me that I respect. So I had the fortune of, after working at this company, this social media company, and becoming their programmer and working there for a while, ultimately like that company failed. Because, well, I don't want to say that company failed, but it was difficult to compete with Facebook because there's such a gargantuan force, and people were really more interested in being social and like experiencing the social network of Facebook. And that's what kids are all doing now, is they want to be part of social media. They don't want to be like in this kind of relegated to like a social media for kids thing. So we really struggled with that. And then I was out of a job. And I got really lucky because I was living in LA at the time, and Naughty Dog was looking for somebody with Flash experience. And I had just made a whole game in Flash for years. So I had a lot of the ActionScript experience that they wanted and looked for. And I got the opportunity to work with them on Uncharted 4 as the UI scripter. So
how did you feel about that?
Oh God, it was terrifying. Like,
what do you mean?
I mean, it was like a really, really big deal, because like I still feel like Naughty Dog is like one of my favorite companies in the games industry. I'm very, very impressed by everything that they do, by how thoughtful they are, by how much like attention to detail they have. I feel like they work really, really, really too hard. And I don't know if there's a great way for them to be able to achieve the heights that they do without working that hard. I feel it's possible, but that's a whole other conversation. But while I was there at Naughty Dog, I got to see like the best, the brightest, the people that were like the most dedicated to their craft and to the team, to making sure that they were able to produce the best game. And so I got to see a lot of like what they would do on a day-to-day basis. They would like constantly check up on people. They would like follow up with everyone. They would know everyone. They would know what everyone was wanting to do or wanting to achieve. They would know what a particular part of the game was supposed to achieve, like on a thematic level. And they would check in with everybody that was working on that level and be like, hey, let's make sure that we're hitting these things. Like, this is like, a detriment to what we're trying to achieve. How can we do it differently? And getting everybody's buy-in to make sure that that game was like, that part of the game was the best that it could be. And that was everybody. It wasn't just like the leads. It was all of the programmers, all of the designers, everybody had like an almost producer mindset where like it was more than just what the tasks that they had to do. It was about like the game and about making sure that the game was doing what it was supposed to do. And I felt that that was a great way to approach like all of the parts of like working in a game company. And I've also gotten to see like, the leadership at Airship, and like get to meet different people in different game studios and kind of learn about how they work and what processes work for them, which ones don't. I watch a lot of documentaries from like No Clip and GDC
I
Talk.
love No Clip.
Yeah, I think like all of the people talking about game development on the internet right now are doing such a service to not just like people that don't know anything about game development, like, the gaming community and like coming to understand the things that we go through, but also for everybody that wants to get into the games development like industry. They need to know what they're getting into, and this serves as an opportunity for us to kind of share the insight, share the things that we've learned. We try to share those things at like talks like in GDC, but especially as more and more the games industry keeps growing, we don't get the opportunity to go to every talk that we should, right? We go to the talks that sound like the coolest at GDC. We're like, hey, I want to learn about this awesome tech, or I want to learn about how to use Houdini in the Unreal Engine. But there's talks about like, hey, keeping your team happy or shipping a game on time that are important and that we should be going to and we should be learning from. And those also I learn a lot from. So I can't say that like all of the techniques and the things that I've figured out over the years have all come from seeing other people do it first and being like, that's a great idea. I should do that. I think that's good. And sometimes like you don't know what's a good idea, and so you just try it. And you see like, hey, is this going to work out? Yeah, you experiment a little bit. And sometimes it gets overbearing. Sometimes, you realize like, hey, I really should be more empathetic instead of like constantly badger people about like, hey, we should do this. We should do this. I'd say that probably like 50% of it is going to be like trying the things that you see. And 50% of it is also just listening to the people around you. Like, be empathetic to your team members, listen, notice when they are sad or depressed or struggling, and do what you can to address that and figure out like, okay, what are you like, what's the problem? How do we address your problem?
Yeah, because the game dev industry could be very stressful and really tough on people's mental health. And I think to ignore that is just a huge crime and will end up a bigger problem at the end of the day. But like, how can someone be more aware of what they're going through without like, what are some indicators that you've seen when you've been working so that people can be more, aware?
I mean, there's a lot of indicators, and we've seen a lot of them specifically now during like COVID-19, because we've had to deal with a lot of stress in people's lives and frustration and obvious signs like people being really, really frustrated, people being distracted, forgetting things, being really demotivated, not really engaging with the rest of the team. Like all these are signs that somebody's having a hard time and that they need somebody to listen to them and to like talk to them and be like, hey, what's going on? How can I help you? There's signs that like things are probably going wrong with the project if like people are kind of going off and doing their own thing and not really communicating with each other, not collaborating, not figuring out like, hey, how do we work in tandem? So like all of those things I think are good things to watch out for and be aware of. I think the biggest challenge is really kind of figuring out how to be an active listener. Because when you know that somebody's having a hard time, reaching out to them is difficult. It's difficult if you're like an introvert like me, and you're just like, I don't like, I feel a lot of anxiety when I'm trying, like, I'm talking to somebody about somebody important, about something important, even if it's just like to like call Pizza Hut and order a pizza. I feel anxiety. So imagine if it's
No,
something
I know how it feels. Yeah.
Imagine if it's something serious, like, hey, I think that you're having a hard time. Do you want to talk to me about it? But I think that reaching out to people indicates that you care. And what's more is not trying to solve their problem immediately, just kind of letting them talk about it and understanding the problem is really, really big for making people feel seen and heard. As you ask them like, hey, okay, so what's going on? They explain like, having a hard time. And you're like, yeah, okay, what's been frustrating you? And they'll go into it and they'll talk about like that, let's say that they talk about like the team, they feel like they don't listen to them. And you're like, oh yeah, that really sucks because everybody wants to have their opinion like valued. Everybody wants their insight to feel, acknowledged.
Mm-hmm.
You have good ideas. I've heard your ideas and I know that they're good. So it sucks if it feels like nobody's listening to you. Those kinds of things, like even if you're not trying to solve their problem, you're giving them the opportunity to express how they feel to somebody, so that they don't feel like they're just kind of locked in a box or like kind of like left out. And that's kind of step one of bringing them back into the group. And the next part is just talking to them about like, okay, well, what do you think like you really need? And figure out how to address those things. And that's, you start to get more towards like being a lead once you start really like trying to address different team members' needs and kind of like consider them. So that's one of those like, hey, act like the job that you want. But also like be aware that like sometimes it's not your job to fix problems in the team, but it's good to listen to your teammates and then bring it up, or tell them like, hey, do you want me to bring it up to the lead? Do you want me to talk to somebody about it, like for you?
Yeah.
And like make sure that they know what you're doing and that they don't feel like you are going behind the rack, because it's like you got to be transparent about these things and make sure that you're doing things that they're comfortable with.
Is it kind of like the situation where like all the your colleagues like to like discuss stuff among each other but can't really go above? Like can't discuss the same thing to the higher ups?
I don't think so as much. Not at Airship.
Okay.
I think that can happen at different companies, especially if like management feels like it's kind of its own monster.
Yeah.
But Airship is we still act like a pretty small game studio. We're not a small game studio anymore. We started with like 4 people. And then we like at the end of Battle Chasers, it was like 15, 16 people.
You're growing.
Yeah, we're growing, and now we're like a 60. So it's definitely been a shift, and we still need to kind of figure out how to like handle that communication from like one team to the next. But what we definitely have is still a really close knit like experience as a team. All of our leads are like people that we've worked with for a long time. All of our our management or like producers are people that you can just send a message to, and we try to keep that approachable aspect of the company going. Like you can always like message the president, even though it seems kind of terrifying.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
He's just a cool guy, and he's just happy to talk to people.
So is that like the culture built? The vision is to have the community and everybody working there feel like they can just talk to anyone, and they're kind of like a close family.
I think I think that one of the like the vision statement of Airship has definitely had to evolve over time as we've grown as a company. But I think that like we still very much care about our employees, and we try to demonstrate that care by like looking out for them, having good benefit programs, and like making sure that they're taken care of, making sure like, hey, if we have to put in extra hours, God forbid, we're gonna buy meals for people. We're gonna make sure that good. Like you're comfortable. Like we're gonna make sure that you don't have to like work a specific set of hours. You can work when you need to, like to make the time up. So that way you can spend time with your family. You can keep like your mental. You can take breaks. You can like work on the weekend if you want to, or not. If you can get your job, the tasks that you have done, in the amount of time that you have coming into the office, great. Just make sure that you're communicating with your lead if you're getting overwhelmed, or if you're doing enough, or if you're not enough, or if it's not enough time. So yeah, like we're definitely the kind of studio that's focusing on that, and we're not perfect. There's definitely a lot of things that we could do better, but like I think that's the kind of studio that I want to work for, is the ones that are really like paying attention to that kind of thing.
I think all studios should be like that, and so it's good to see like you guys trying and working on your mistakes, trying to perfect it so other companies can then follow the same path.
I hope so.
Well, we're getting there. We're getting to a point, because it's just I can't see a studio working the opposite way and then being successful long term. Like, I know some of these companies like EA and them, they seem to manage to do things like that, but like I'm talking about like long term, like many years from now, like who knows what could happen to some of these companies if like more scandals happen or certain things happen. It's just like, your employees matter. So
yeah, and it's hard to say like. I'm of course an advocate for like minding your employees and making sure that like you put them first, but at the same time, like I don't know what the like results of what I'm trying to do long term are going to be. Like, is that sustainable business practice? I don't know. Is like the question is more like, is capitalism broken? But I'm not gonna get into that one. I like there's some cool ideas that I've seen in the games industry, like game development co-ops of like companies that like they all share the profits and they're all the same, they're all on the same levels and they're all co-owners, and that seems really cool. And then I'm like, but is that going to work in the capitalist society? I don't know. There's a lot of new things happening in the games industry right now. So if you have like the flexibility, and if you're fortunate enough to be able to experiment with that, and you feel like that's a really cool idea, please do it. I want to know, like, is this sustainable long term? I want to see more of these companies succeed so that we can emulate them and be like, hey, that worked for them and that's great for them and they're still making amazing games. So I want to see more of that.
Hopefully in time, probably.
Hopefully.
So there's a lot we got into that one, but how do you retain all the stuff you took from the GDC videos you were talking about, no clip or anything you've watched? Like, do you take notes? Do you continue to watch it over and over again?
Oh my God, do I take notes? I don't. I'm very bad at taking notes. I think sometimes some things I remember and sometimes some things I don't. And I think that I'm hoping that if there's something that's good, that I'm just going to retain it. Like if something really stands out to me and is going to like land really with me and make me think like, hey, that was really a good idea, then it should stick. Or I like bring it up to other people and I'm like immediately try to implement it. Like the night after watching a GDC talk, I'm like, that was great. And I share it with everyone in Slack. And then I talk to them about it and be like, can we do something like this? And sometimes they're just like, no, Andres, we don't have time.
Yeah, you're like, I got it. It's in there.
But like, I know that there's probably good ideas that I've heard that I've forgotten, and that's okay. You don't have to do everything. You're not Superman. It's not all your job to make your company better or to be the perfect manager or the perfect lead or the perfect like principal designer, whatever it is that you're going for. Really it's just about like trying to make yourself better one thing at a time. There's a really good set of like tutorials and guides that I've seen for drawing, where a lot of people would get frustrated looking at ArtStation and seeing like all this amazing concept art like up on ArtStation, being like, oh my God, I'm never going to be that good. Like, how could I ever make a painting that's so great? Like with the color theory and then like the backgrounds are so great and the human like proportions and anatomy is so perfect. And what these guys, like people say is, don't look at ArtStation as like, the target that you have to hit. Look at each time that you were going to do a new painting, don't try to make it an ArtStation painting. Try to make it a painting that is yours, that is at your skill level, but you are trying to improve one thing. And like you look at like ArtStation paintings that like do that one thing really well, and you look at them for inspiration, and you like try to focus really, really hard on like maybe you want to do lighting really, really well. And so like that is the thing that you're focusing on. And you make multiple paintings trying to do that. And every time that you do a drawing, your lighting is going to improve, and it's going to get better every time because you're focusing on one thing at a time. And when you get to the next thing that you're going to try to improve on, your lighting is going to be solid, and you're going to be then focusing on anatomy. And you're going to remember all of the things that you've learned from the past lessons that you've tried to learn. So focusing on improving yourself one step at a time is really how you go about it, is by like, okay, well, I'm going to try to be, a better listener for all the people around me. Just focus on that. Don't try to do it all.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
People like to do a lot of things. Let me do all the courses. Let me make everything. Let me do the programming, the art, this and that. It's like, it's
and
cool.
I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
And like, if you're having fun, do it all. But like, don't feel discouraged that you can't do it all to the level of like, magnum opus or a senior programmer. You don't have to. You just have to get a little better at a time. And if you're going to get into the games industry, it really works to like, it's really useful to try like picking one thing that you're going to try to go for and specializing in that and improving on that. So like, a lot of people are like, hey, I do everything. I do the art, I do the programming. And I'm like, being a generalist is great. I'm a generalist. I absolutely do everything. But I realized pretty early on that I was able to do really well in programming, and I was able to like, go from a scripter to a programmer to a senior programmer to lead programmer. And I specifically made the choice of focusing on one career path to move forward while still doing a lot of my own indie projects on the side, and like, writing music, and like, watching a lot of documentaries on like the design behind Dark Souls and why it's great. Like I care a lot about these other aspects of game development, but I recognize that like if for my career, the best thing I can do for myself is to constantly move forward and to improve myself as a programmer. And if I focus on that, then when I get to the point where like I have other things that I want to try or propose, I can say it with the backing of like, this is a person that we trust. This is a person that has demonstrated that they're capable. They have good judgment. They've demonstrated that they're reliable and they do their work well. So let's hear them out. And that doesn't mean that immediately I'm going to become like the lead designer on another project. But it does mean that, I can talk to the design team and be like, hey, I thought of this idea, and they'll listen to me and be like, hey, that could be a cool idea. Let's see how we can do that. Or they might like take the opportunity to teach me more about design that I don't know, because I don't specialize in that. And that's really like what I try to focus on, is like getting hired and getting in the games industry and working on things that I care about is the first step. And then being able to like trying to do everything is going to mean that I'm going to be less attractive to somebody who's looking for somebody who does one thing. It means that I'm much more versatile, and I can do a lot of things, and I can, have input in a lot of places. But if being hired is the priority, then trying to make myself hireable is definitely the way to go.
So I'm curious on how you decided that programming was your one thing and not like art.
It was really difficult because like when I came out of out of my degree, I was like ready to do game design, and like I did a whole test for World of Warcraft, and I got into like a phone interview at World of Warcraft without having really any experience doing like design. And I was talking to like a Ghostcrawler on the phone, like slightly fanboying out, and they told me like, no, sorry, you're just too green. You don't have the experience that we
No.
need. Yeah,
Oh, man.
but it was true. They were right. I didn't have the experience I needed. I didn't realize like some of the problems I was running into. Had I had more experience, I would have been able to say like, actually, the problem that you're asking me to solve is not solvable. So what you have to do is do this other thing. But I realized that I was pretty good at programming when I was able to just kind of like adapt very quickly at this social media company that I was at. Like they gave me this programming position kind of like on an interim basis. So like it was like, you're going to replace the current programmer that we have, who's a pretty good programmer. And I was able to figure it out and I was able to adapt to it. I was able to demonstrate that like I could learn the material. I could go above and beyond what they were asking me to do. I could take responsibility over different parts of the product that weren't even my responsibility. Like there were things that honestly the tech director should have been doing, and he didn't seem to like really pick up on them. So I just grabbed them and I did them myself. And like everyone was just like, yeah, you go for it. Like we're trusting you to just take it to that all the way. And I think that is a really empowering thing to like just let people kind of, when people just let you run with something, that can feel really great. And not everybody's as fortunate or lucky. But that made me realize like, hey, I can do this. I can learn more programming. I could become a better programmer. And I could keep like going up in this and becoming better at it. And then like moving out of Flash, it was like a whole new world, right? Because it was like Flash programming is dead. It's very, very dead and far away.
Gone, yeah.
Yeah. So like moving into like Naughty Dog and learning like a bunch of different like different programming language and different scripting languages, that was tough. But I just tried to rise to the occasion and like get better and make good decisions and learn from like the code that I was seeing. There was a lot of looking around, emulating what the people around me were doing, and just trying to learn lessons from what I was seeing. And because I was able to like from the beginning feel like, hey, I can do this, it really helped. It helped me like kind of motivate me to just go down this path and see where it led, even though it wasn't what I originally wanted. And ultimately, I think that like I still do get a lot of ability to kind of like influence or be part of the design. I get to like do more gameplay development, more gameplay programming. And I'm pretty close to the design team, and I constantly like figure out like, okay, how do we make tools for you guys to like, I see what you guys want to do, and I want this to work this particular way, so let me like make some tools so that you guys can just do it in this way, and then like you can kind of iterate on it and keep like being able to create new content more easily. And being able to kind of work with them, it makes me feel really empowered. And it makes me feel encouraged to keep going. I guess like the long and the short of it is like look for things that you feel like you can take and run with. Like if it feels like it's something that you can pick up and it's okay if you don't get it right every time, but if you feel motivated to keep trying, go for it. Just keep trying and like keep pursuing that thing. The thing that you feel like you can fail at, like that, I think that's a good way to look at it. Is if you feel like you can fail at it, but that doesn't feel bad, you can just keep trying over and over, and you can get it right eventually. That's a great thing to like focus on, because if you fail at it and you feel like, I hate this, I don't want to do it anymore, that's not going to encourage you to keep trying. That's not going to encourage you to keep going down that path. Whereas if you like try it and you fail and you're like, okay, well, I'll try again a little bit differently, or I'll do this other thing, and getting it right makes you feel excited, and then you keep trying, and that's the loop that you're looking for, the encouragement that's going to let you go down that path.
No, that's a really good one, because you have to like enjoy what you're doing if you fail.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of moments where people be like, oh, I'm just gonna push through and discipline. And you get to a point where it's like, discipline took you so far, but like now you don't really enjoy what you're doing, and it's the only thing you're good at. So it's like you should so try to find the thing that you love doing and you're good at, which is what you found programming, right? Like you're like, I'm really good at this, and I enjoy making games and programming, so why not do it?
Yeah. And I think also it's important to just not get burnt out on like what it is that you're doing. Like even if you love it right now, you have to remember like what you're doing at work. You are very passionate about it, and you're going to do it to the best of your ability, but it is work. So when you get off of work, and don't drown yourself in like constantly thinking about work. Don't be like me.
What'd you do?
I think about work a lot, even when I'm off of work. I try to be like force myself to stop and be creative in other ways because like, doing painting in the evenings and like, listening to music or like, playing guitar, like those things are ways to kind of be creative and expend energy in different ways. And that stops me from being like, I'm going to like finish programming and then I'm going to do more programming and then I'm going to learn more programming and then I'm going to do tutorials online to do more programming. I'm going to get burned out. I'm going to stop really wanting to program. Whereas if I do programming for work and then when I get like off of work, I'm like, I'm going to do other interesting things that are just for me, that can flex different muscles. That's going to help me come back to work energized and ready to do more programming and keep growing from that. And it's difficult, especially with like artists. Art is like once you do art, you're kind of like always doing art.
Yeah, I know. I have a friend like that. Always.
Yeah.
Every minute.
Yeah.
Even like taking videos of the trip we're on. It's artistic. But I'm glad he did because the video he made was epic. But like still, everything
Yeah,
is art.
but yeah, like it's but I do try to encourage people. It's like, okay, you're doing a bunch of 3D modeling at work. When you're done, like just do painting or do like some sculpting for fun. Like do actual like clay sculpting. Do things that are like tangential to what you're doing, that are like related, but like do something that's just slightly off so it doesn't feel as much like it's the same thing that you're doing at work. Find a way to make it your own, because that's a really good way to kind of energize yourself. Or just become a movie buff. Or get into coffee. Get really into coffee.
Is that you? Is that what you did?
I definitely do. I'm very into coffee now. I mean, I do a lot of things, but like, it's important to find other hobbies and things that'll let you be creative in different ways.
Hmm. Now, is this advice for someone who is just starting out, or someone who's like made it and is now like control your work-life balance?
I mean, I think that you should start from the beginning. Like, don't like, unless, I guess if you're 21, you have like the resilience of a rubber ball. You can just bounce back from anything. But like, I'm 30. Like, I'm 33. I don't know how old I am. But like, I'm definitely at the point now where I cannot just pull all-nighters working on like programming code and just drinking beer. I can't do that. I
Yeah.
used to, but I think that like starting learning how to balance that also puts you in a better place for later. There's like the studies that have shown that like people really only have a good 8 hours of work in them anyway. They have even less. They have like 6 hours of work in them, but we stretch it out to 8. After a while, you're just not going to start doing good work. You're just going to be hammering your head against the wall. So you might as well just do something else so that when you come back to the work, you're more refreshed and you're doing better work. You have a clearer head.
Makes a lot of sense. And it's same for studying. So how did you study programming since you didn't go to school for it? Did you have like a set system? Did you just build stuff and learn on the way?
I mean, I like a lot of times it was just like, I have this project that I want to do. How do I do it? And like basically just I did a lot of programming in Flash and I like some programming in Unreal 3 using Unreal Script. And it was just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to figure out how to get this to work and understand the system. And it helps to have a project. It really helps to have a group project.
Okay.
If you are starting out in the games industry and you haven't made anything and you want to show a game company that you're serious, make things with other people. Find other students. Find other people that are making games and make games with them, because like the likelihood is you're probably not going to sell it. Probably nobody's going to make money off of it. Don't work for people that are obviously going to make money off of your thing and just do it for free. Don't do that. That's bad. People should pay you for work. But if you're like a bunch of students and you have this student project and you have this idea that everybody really likes and you just want to do it, just try it. You might not even finish it, but you will have something at the end of it. Like you will have worked together, you will have an experience, and you will learn things about what it takes to make a game. That's one of the biggest problems is a lot of people come out of the like game schools or game programs not really knowing what it takes to make a game. They know how to 3D model or they know how to like program software, and that's great, but that's not what it takes to make a game. Making a game is a group effort. It requires communication. It requires a lot of like sacrifice and problem solving and being like at the last minute, like this is really hard. It was more hard than we thought it would be. This will happen to you for the rest of your career. You will get to a point where they will be like, oh my God, why did we decide to do this? This is the most difficult thing. Why, like, we need to do this some other way. That will constantly happen. And that's fine. It's fine to be at that place. What you then need to do is figure out how you're going to turn it around, how you're going to pivot. That skill is more important in making games than, knowing how to make perfect UVs.
That's true. So how does someone like cultivate that? Are they born with it? Can they grow it?
No, you could totally just do it. Join game jams. That's a really good one. There's a lot of community game jams on like itch.io and like all over the internet. There's the global game jam. That one people are like feeling less good about.
Because it's like a weekend?
It's a weekend.
It's like crunch
I
or
think
something?
Yeah, like there's the crunch aspect. There's like I don't know what's like I don't really know very much about it. If you don't like the global game jam, don't do the global game jam. Find a game jam that feels like something healthy you can do. Some of them like last like 2 weeks, and they're just over the 2 weeks make a game. That's plenty of time. Like I liked going in and doing like the 24-hour or 48-hour game jam, but some people aren't going to be able to gather together in a location. It's actually really unhealthy to work that long for that amount of time. You might have to work jobs, and that's infeasible for some people that are working like part-time jobs or something. So don't feel like you have to do that. Some of them are a lot more permissive, but find a group of people that want to make a game that you have an idea, a collective idea with that group that like everybody really likes, and they feel like they're going to try to do, and then try to make it over 2 weeks and see how far you get. If you make a game, that's already something you can put on your portfolio and be like, look, we made this game. It was me and a bunch of people, and you can talk about what you did, what you learned from it, what your experience was like, what you didn't expect. That gives you a lot of things to bring to an interview that an employer is going to want to hear about. They're going to be like, okay, so what was it like working with this team? What problems did you run into? They want to know that you have what it takes to finish a project. Mm-hmm. And the more projects that you finish, the better like you're going to indicate that you are capable of that. Like sometimes they're going to be hiring somebody that has like very specific knowledge for like, we need somebody that can use the Unreal Engine and use motion capture and all this stuff. Don't like worry about trying to apply to those or have all of those specialized things. Some of those things come like with more time. Some of those come like if you got lucky and happened to be in a school with a motion capture studio, you can learn that. What you should do is learn the fundamentals of like what it takes to make a game, what it takes to make art, what it takes to make programming, what it takes to be an audio designer, because the tools and the like specific techniques, those can be taught, but showing that you have the ability to go through and like complete the tasks given to you and be resourceful, that's what a game company is really looking for.
And for somebody who maybe has never done an interview or who literally just started, what would it look like? Would that be multiple mini games on their portfolio? Would that be written out like GDDs? Like what could they do to be like, hey, I know I'm resourceful. I know I'm good at this. Because I know some people lack the confidence.
Yeah, I think that like I'm obviously not the only person that looks at like resumes, and so your mileage is going to vary. But if I'm looking at a resume, what I want to see is like that they've made multiple projects with a team. Oftentimes, like I prefer somebody doing something with a group of people rather than them making something by themselves, unless what they made by themselves is extremely impressive. I mean, I'm not going to say don't have projects that are by yourself, but like have projects also with other people to indicate like I can be part of a team. I don't think game design documents are actually that common in game development anymore. People don't really use them as much. It's still good to be able to write cohesively about game design and like spec documents and like basically, know how to break down a feature to all of the different components and explain how they work. So I wouldn't say like don't learn to write game specs or design specs for a specific feature. I think that's a really useful skill. But don't bother trying to write one, like a whole game design document, as like a thing to show. Nobody's going to read that. It's just, they're just too long. And what really we want to see is that you can do the work, and the work is, going and implementing all of the designs, not just like writing out a big script of designs, but rather also going in, working with the programmer, like iterating on stuff. Like, because that's the other thing, you're going to write down a spec document in like day-to-day game design, for example. You're going to write down a spec document, you're going to hand it to a programmer, they're going to put it in the game, you're going to start playing it, and it's going to suck. It will not feel good. It'll have all these things wrong with it. There'll be something off and you won't know what it is. And the process then is the process of discovery and iteration, where you have to then go in and figure out, like, okay, what do we need to change to make it feel good? You have to break it down and be like, why isn't it working? What is wrong with it? How do we fix it? So that ability to be able to identify those problems and quickly be able to kind of iterate over them to find the ultimate solution, that skill is way more important to a game designer than the ability to write a really strong design document from the very beginning. Because realistically, the first design document you write is going to be wrong. And the same goes for programming. Oftentimes, you're going to build a system, as a programmer, you're going to code it up and you're going to put it in, and it's going to be wrong. Or you're going to be a character
errors and
he's going to have a bunch of errors, or like you're going to have a bunch of bugs, or it's going to be like unwieldy or unoptimized. The important thing is being able to go back and look at your work and figure out how to improve it. That eye for like how to improve something and what is wrong is really what is going to like get you further in the games industry.
That's key. And so again, because like I've struggled with this with the eye, but it's like, do you just surround yourself with a bunch of really good code or good models, and you just like watch videos on it to understand like where specifically it's like, oh, this shading's wrong here, whereas someone will be like, it looks good to me, or like the code here functions better so that you're not like wasting memory leaks. You have things. How can someone like prepare that eye, make that eye into something where they can actually notice things that are not good and notice things that are good?
Looking at other people's examples is a great way to do that. Like them, especially if other people break down stuff for you and tell you like what is wrong with things. There's a lot of people that post like white papers on code on like GitHub, or like they show you like in GDC talks, they show pseudocode where they're like, this is what we were doing before and it wasn't working for this reason, so we changed it to this. Those are really, really great like things to look at, because what you start learning is you start learning from other people's mistakes, because you are making the same mistakes as they are, or you're going to. So learning what they did when they were doing that means like when you make that mistake, because you probably will, like you'll probably forget what you're saying, and then you'll do it, and then you'll look at it and be like, okay, well, this isn't working. Why is that? You will have seen somebody else run into the same problem, and so you'll look at it and be like, that's what it is. It's the same thing that they were talking about. Same thing goes for somebody breaking down like an illustration. It's like concept art or 3D models. If they're talking about like, here's a tutorial on why we do all of the topology for this 3D model in this particular way. You can listen to them talking about it, and they can be like, okay, well, if we do this, then it's going to help our, creases and like our deformation for this 3D model. So later on, when you are trying to make a 3D model and you're retopologizing it and you're saying like, wow, my deformation's all weird, you can think back to them and be like, oh, okay, so they did this other way, so maybe I should try doing it that way. And you can even bring up the tutorial and kind of watch and follow along. Like, being able to learn from other people breaking down issues is a really, really good way to like learn that eye, because nobody is going to expect you to suddenly like know intrinsically what is wrong. You just, if you are able to look at it and be like, I know something is wrong, that's great, but you probably won't know what is wrong. So it really is up to you to like get guidance from other people, especially if you have other people around you whose opinion you respect. Or if you have a community that you can share an image with and be like, hey, can you redline this for me and show me like what is wrong with it? Or if you can like, share code and on like Stack Overflow or something and be like, I'm trying to do this, but it's like not working. What's wrong with it? Or like, and don't expect people to like answer the question for you, but they're going to probably try to guide you. Yeah. And like kind of teach you to be able to see the problem. So that way you can then see the problem in the future in other places where it's not the same piece of code or the same drawing.
Yeah, you gotta think a little bit. It's like those word problems in school. You learn the tools, but now you gotta apply them in a specific way. And I think a lot of people like to just like get stuck in this tutorial hell where they kind of just copy things. They're like, oh, I struggle with a challenge. Here's the answer. And it's like they kind of get used to just the answer being given to them. And when it comes time to think, they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. The way that they taught me doesn't work. I don't really know why they did it that way. So now I don't know how to make it work this way. Like, how do you help people get out of this like tutorial hell, this place of like not really understanding it, but thinking they understand it?
I mean, you're gonna struggle with that for a while. There's this meme that is that I thought was really funny. It's still really funny, but it's a guy looking at his computer. Yeah, it's a guy is looking at his computer, and it says like, "My code doesn't work, and I have no idea why." And then underneath it is the same image of him looking at his computer, and it says, "My code works, and I have no idea why." And that is a thing that I felt like early on, where like there would be a lot of times where I would like be building stuff and I'd be like, I don't know why that works. It just does. And that is a thing that I had to grow out of. That is a thing where like eventually, after looking at enough code, after like learning enough, I stopped looking at it like here's the way of solving the problem, but I started understanding underneath what was going on, what is happening or why things work that way. So for code, you would learn like, okay, I have to follow step by step and look at like visualize in my head where the data is going and what like the state of things is, and use debugging tools to be able to kind of like every step understand like what is the state of the program. And so when something goes wrong, I can find where it's going wrong, and I can see like, oh, okay, this is wrong here. This shouldn't be this here. Same with like art is like, I can tell something's wrong and I don't know what it is. So I have to like slowly go like, step by step and be like, where's my light source? What kind of material is this? What is the light bouncing off of? Or if you're dealing with music, like what are the sounds that I'm currently trying to play? What are the frequencies? How are they clashing together? Is this instrument like just too far to the left? Can I bring it in a little bit more to the center so that I can balance out like the range? These are all things that you like learn the steps of. It's all about learning like step by step. How do you start from the beginning? The fundamentals. Same with like drawing. You learn the fundamentals first. You learn contour. You learn shading. You learn like basic human proportions before you start, painting the Mona Lisa. You don't start with the Mona Lisa. You don't start with start with a portrait. You start with like master line, because once you figured out line, then you can start with like, okay, this is the stepping stone. This is step one. Then I learned step two. Then I learned step three. And after a while, those steps will be automatic for you. So when you are getting to the point where you're trying to solve a very complicated problem or make something that's very complicated, you will already intrinsically know those things. And you won't be struggling with my code works and I don't know why, or my code works and I don't know why.
I fall in that bracket.
Yeah. You will understand that it doesn't work. And then the question of why it doesn't is I have to step through and make sure that like at every place where I expect it to be behaving in a certain way, it is behaving that way. And all you have to do then is find the place where it's not.
Pretty much, yeah. And then just logically make it work in a way that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And I mean,
in a simple way, yeah.
Art, they're not the same thing.
No.
But I think that the idea of like learn the fundamentals, learn to like, go from step one all the way to the final step is still applicable across all of these disciplines. If you are struggling with like, I need to like figure out like how to make this look good, then you have to go backwards in the steps that you're doing and like be like, okay, maybe you just need to redraw the hand because maybe it's just a bad hand. Maybe it doesn't matter how you light the hand. Maybe the pose is just bad, or the composition is bad. And if you fix that, it'll be great.
It's true. That's it. Just that one thing. It's all good.
It might be, or it might be that there's something else wrong. But like being able to kind of go back to those fundamentals and then work back up from them, that's very crucial.
And what would you say for people who aren't impatient and they're like, I need to master this in 3 weeks, whenever. I need to know it now. And then they get frustrated because they feel like they're rushing things, rushing tutorials, rushing the process. And they kind of know it, but at the end of the day, they can't really reproduce what they've learned. Like, what do you say to people like that who just feel like they have to rush for that job or whatever?
I guess ask yourself what you're looking for. Because if you're trying to rush, you might be falling into the trap that you feel like, you know, the job is going to be the thing that's enjoyable or good. You're like putting your expectations on this pedestal that it's like, once I get into the games industry, everything's going to be great. And you know, getting into the games industry is a huge relief. I'm not going to say that's not relief, but you're going to get to where you're going and then you're going to be unsatisfied for some other reason. Like you're always going to be looking for something new, something more exciting. That's how humans are. So if that is the case, like you should like reevaluate and look at making sure that you enjoy the work. Because if you don't enjoy the work, if you're in a process where all you're doing is you're just kind of idolizing the end result, then you're not going to have a good time in the games industry because it's not a lot of end result. It's a lot of work. Games are notorious for like, you will work on it for like 4 years and it'll look like crap and it'll look like crap and it'll play like crap. And then in the last few months, everything will suddenly come together and it'll be amazing. And it just constantly happens. So that means that those 3 or 4 years, you have to be in love with doing the work because it's not going to be great. It's not going to come together. It's going to look really sloppy. And you're going to only be seeing everything in progress for a really long time. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be able to see the potential in it and be like, yeah, that potential is great. We're totally still going in the right direction. But like, understand that like the work and being, you know, feeling good about the day to day and feeling good about the things that you accomplish in a day, that's more important for the long term than, you know, making the amazing 3D model that is like now fully rigged in Unity and like has all these animations in it. That's going to take a long time to get to that point. Like, especially if you're just starting out, it's going to take weeks. So just enjoy each part of the process. And if you don't enjoy each part of the process, maybe you don't want to work in games.
That's a big one, yeah.
I think it's a good thing, like for people to know is like a lot of people that I've met they often talk to me. It's like, I've always wanted to work in games. I'm like, oh, really? What do you want to do? And they're like, well, I have all of these ideas. And I love those people because they have so much energy, but I like keep telling them like, okay, you have all these ideas. That's great. Nobody in the games industry is the idea guy. There's no job like that. So what do you want to do? And like, is what you want to do like program? Do you really enjoy the process of programming? Do you really enjoy the process of art? Do you want to make everything beautiful? Do you want to like, you know, do you want to help other people like organize the tasks? Do you want to be a producer? Like, do you want to just test the game? Like, what do you want to do? And I think it's important that you find a thing that you really enjoy doing in that process because no game is made by one person. I mean, there are games made by one person, but even the one person usually has help. Like Toby Fox had help to make Undertale. It's not just Toby Fox. It's mostly Toby Fox.
Yeah,
but
he's the visionary, but he's got some help.
But like that is like 1 in a million people, 1 in like 5 million people. Like you are not probably not that person. If you are, fantastic.
Statistically, you're not, most likely not. And don't get hurt about that. Like,
yeah, no, it's fine. I'm not that person either. Yeah. I don't want to be that person. It's exhausting. But you do want to, if you want to work in the games industry, you want to find the thing that makes it so like you want to come to work every day, that you feel excited to come to work today. Because, you know, we're not in the games industry for the money. You know, the games industry is not where you make tens of millions of dollars.
It's really not.
We don't come to the games industry for like, you know, the mental health. There's a lot of game studios that have really bad problems
Yeah.
with this.
Hmm.
You don't just come to relax. You don't come there for the fame. Most game developers not recognized at all for the contributions that they make to games. But if you enjoy making games, if you can't see yourself doing anything but making games, like me when I was like 12 years old and playing with RPG Maker, and I was like, I don't want to do anything but this the entire time. I told my parents, I'm going to stay in during the summer and just work on this game idea that I have. And they forbid it and told me that I had to go out and socialize with my friends. Because
No.
yeah, they were like, why are you gonna? No, you have to go and socialize with my friends. I think I should have pitched it in a different way. I should have been like, I'm going to spend 8 hours a day, like as if it were a job, working on
They
a
probably
game.
would have liked that. They'd been like,
Yeah, they
ah.
would have been like, oh, discipline, but then maybe they wouldn't have. But that's what I wanted to do because I loved making the game. I loved the process of making a game. And that's the person that you want to be, is find that thing that you love that makes you want to make games, and then find other people that feel the same about different parts and work together and make something. Like that is going to be the way to put yourself in a better position to like enter the games industry. And it's not a guarantee. It's not going to save you. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are less fortunate in they're in different countries where there's not a very big games industry, and like they're going to struggle to immigrate. They're not going to have the same financial opportunities as other people. All of these things are normal. They might be working in your favor. They might be working against you. It's not your fault if that's, again, like if you're not in that position. You're just going to struggle, and I'm really, really sorry. Take what advantages that you have and try to take them as far as you can. Work with try to do what you can with what you have. Find other people that are in similar positions as you. Work together. Support each other, because this is a community. It is, the games industry is an industry that is very, very small, and we remember the people that we work with. So if one of your friends makes it into the games industry, they're going to keep trying to get you a job if you were there helping them out the entire time that they were there. Like, they are going to do their best and help you with your portfolio. They're going to give you advice. They're going to do mock interviews with you. They're going to recommend you everywhere, because we remember and we take care of our own. So that is really where you should focus your energy, is on the people around you, the people that also want to get into the games industry, the people that also want to make games, because they're just like you and they are just as passionate, and working together with them is going to improve and put you in a better place in the long run.
Mm-hmm. It's really true about it's who you know, not just what you know. Then it's also really good to work with people that you like, because we're all gamers. We all think the same, have the same interests. Well, why not have fun while making games? Isn't that the whole point of making games?
We don't have all the same interests, but we definitely share a big common one. I agree with that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We share one big common one, which is games, and usually movies and all entertainment stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just we're making games, so why not have fun making it? So surround yourself with people who you vibe with. And also, I've heard from a lot of people, another person from Naughty Dog was we care a lot more about if the person can communicate with other people than if their skill is better. If someone's skill is better but they can't communicate, they'll choose a second person who's almost as good but communicates just as good.
100%.
That's just what it's important. You need to be able to communicate your ideas. You need to be able to get along with people. You don't want any fights. You don't want any petty stuff. You just want a nice team that's got a good culture and is helping each other.
Yep. There's a saying that I heard. I think it was the producer on Astroneer. Was it the producer? Yeah, I think it was the producer on Astroneer. She brought up that a team ships a game at the end of a game development, right? But a producer ships a team.
Ooh.
So it's the producer's job to make sure that the team works together, that they communicate together, that they're cohesive, that they have a good process, that they like each other, that they feel like a team. And that's really valuable to have as as a perspective for everyone involved, is that at the end of the game, you don't want to just finish the game and be like, okay, peace out, I'm leaving. You want people to want to stay and work on the next game. And that's a huge goal for your game studio, is like having the kind of environment where people don't want to leave. They want to stick around forever.
300%, yeah. Forever. Keep making this game. Now, I'm curious, did you ever go through any like dark moments where like you had to...
Oh, God.
You felt like you had to like make super sacrifices, or that like you had to give up, or something like that?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Like, especially as an immigrant, there were like times where I would cry myself to sleep because like just getting into the country and being able to stay was so hard. And you know, I thought I'd be like separated from my partner, and like there was like a lot of like crazy legal stuff going on with you know, immigrants.
Dang, you must have been so stressed.
It was super stressful. It was like the 2010s, the entire time that I was going through that. So it was not happy. There was also a time when I was working for this social media company when, like, you know, we started not really getting any money from the product, and we kept trying to like bring it around so they would not be able to pay me. And I was still working, and like I was super depressed, and living in Los Angeles, which was really expensive. So there was a lot of really hard times. There's also crunching on Uncharted 4 was really, really difficult for a lot of people. A lot of people left after Uncharted 4, and I'm sure a lot of people left after The Last of Us Part 2 at Naughty Dog, because it's just so much effort that you have to put in, and wake up really early in the morning to drive through LA traffic all the way to Santa Monica, and then work for like 12 hours, and then go home and go to bed immediately the moment you walk through the door, because there's no other time left for anything else. And that kind of work was, for me, unsustainable. And like, I really admired the work ethic and dedication that all of the people at Naughty Dog have, and I take that with me. But what I want to try to do differently is find a better work-life balance, so that, like, you know, you bring that energy and that attention to detail 8 hours a day, and then you go home. And I've had people ask me, it's like, you know, I just kind of want to work on the weekends because I don't really have anything to do. And I said, like, look, I'm not going to stop you from working on the weekend if that's what you want to do. But if it's up to me, I would rather you do something that is going to energize you and motivate you and inspire you. So work on something that is just like your own side project, work on something that's a unique hobby, learn to cook, do anything at all that's going to give you a lot of energy and inspiration. Watch movies, watch old cinema, like do anything at all that's going to give you ideas that then when you come into work on Monday, you are full to the brim with new interesting ideas that you're going to bring to the table, as opposed to just kind of, you know, doing your work led throughout the weekend. And that's kind of what I want out of the people around me, is I want to make sure it's like, you know, you put in your 8 hours, make sure you get work done. Don't hang out on Facebook while you're at work. Don't do that. But once you're done, go home and be the best you that you can outside of work, and grow as a person, and, you know, make friendships and have life experiences, because those are the ones that when you come into work and we're like trying to figure out like what awesome moment do we want to happen with the characters here in this particular part of the game, you're going to have an idea from the samurai movie that you watched, or like the time that you went camping with your friends out in the hills. Like, I want to know about those experiences, and I want you to bring them to the table. And being a full 3-dimensional human being full of experiences is the best thing that we can bring to any creative endeavor.
You know, that's amazing you say that, because I watched a video one time where it was like, to be the best film director or storyteller is to not watch all the movies that were made, but to go experience life, read books you've never read, go do sports you've never done, just like experience life, because then you can bring those ideas and create something new with your story and stuff like that. And so it's just like, it's like maybe that's the problem with a lot of people. It's like, oh, I'm stuck, I'm frustrated in this, I cannot get any new ideas, I'm not creative. It's like, yeah, because you've been trying to do the same thing every day for like 12 hours, and it's not working, and you're not learning anything from it, and you're just getting frustrated. Of course you have no ideas. Go
Yeah, I
read
mean,
a
if you
book.
burn
Yeah.
yourself out, yeah, it's really hard to be creative. Especially, oh, don't blame yourself if you've not been able to be creative over the past year. This has been like an awful, awful year for everybody. Absolutely everyone. People have been depressed. People have been like, constantly haunted. People have not been able to kind of uh, like deal with work. Like work is extra draining, especially if you're like a frontline worker and you have to go somewhere where you feel unsafe and you're constantly wearing your mask and you're hoping that you don't catch anything. Like that's terrifying. I don't blame anyone
Yeah.
for not being, not feeling 100% after that. That is not your fault. But if you are constantly trying to push yourself outside of that, you're going to have a really hard time feeling inspired. So only like work on when you actually feel inspired, or dedicate a little bit of time, a little chunk of time, like an hour every night to improve and practice at what it is that you want to do. But the rest of the time, make sure that you take time to rest. Make sure that you take time to, like you said, experience life and have moments to like refresh yourself, because that energy is really important for like being able to continue, being able to be creative, having ideas, having life experiences that are going to, give you something. Like a couple of weeks ago, there was this massive, I don't know if you heard about the Texas freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
One of my
we
friend's
lived
sister
through
lives
that.
there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We were without power for 78 hours. And I was legitimately frightened for my life. Like our house was in the, below 40 degrees.
Oh
And
no.
I was just sleeping with like every layer of clothing I had on me and under a ton of blankets. It was really, really scary. And I was afraid of like my cat would like, get sick, or she was really old and I didn't want anything to happen to her. So it's like I would just constantly like cuddle her under the sheets, and I didn't do anything that entire week. I was just like so like cold and upset and depressed. But after having gone through it, I'm not saying that this is a good thing. I'm not saying that like, the silver lining, because this is still horrible, and a lot of people had a like way way worse things happen, like their houses flooded, and it's
Oh
terrible.
yeah, yeah, I saw that. The
But at
pipe
the
blew up.
yeah,
Water
people's
went
pipes froze.
everywhere.
It's horrible. But at the end of it, I sat down and I wrote out a bunch of game design ideas for like what would a game be like that would like give somebody an idea of the kind of things that we went through, and like the kind of resourcefulness that we had to have, and like look for like look through all of the boxes in the attic to try to find a flashlight, and uh like Jimmy rig things out of like screwdrivers in order to like try to fix
Yeah. I'm thinking
different
like
tools.
what's that game we have to cook? Overcooked? But instead like you have to go and like keep the fireplace like lit or fix like a
Yeah,
pipe or get like food, like constantly moving around, making sure your
yeah.
apartment's not a mess.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I recently played Phasmophobia, and there's like a lot of like environmental awareness that you have to have. And that's one of the things I was thinking about is like, well, what if you have like, you carry around an oven thermometer to check what the temperature in the
Hmm.
room is, and you're like, oh no, it's too cold. Like we're getting a cold wave. I have to go upstairs and like close all of the doors, and then like
Hmm.
put stuff under the door in order to like keep the room insulated and try to keep the heat levels up in the room. And obviously, we were never really at risk. Not in the same way that like you are in a game like The Long Dark, where like the cold gets to like sub-zero and it's like actually legitimately dangerous for a human
Yeah,
being.
that would
Yeah, I
have
was
been
never
awful if
in
that
that
happened.
Atlas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
would
was
be like,
never.
bro, we need to send everyone to go save him.
But like, um, but imagining that kind of scenario, like if that were to happen and you're stuck in your house and nobody can come get you, like what would that experience be like? And that's the kind of life experience that you get, and you start thinking about like, I would make that into a game. I kind of want to make that into a game. I want people to see what I went through. And
Hmm.
not that I'm going to make it a game. That's an idea. I put it in my book of games that I one day might make one day, and maybe I'll never make them.
That's cool. You have a
But
book?
yeah, of
I
course I
should
have a
start
book.
that.
Every designer has a book of like game ideas that they would want to make, and they write it down and then they never look at it again. But that's fine
Yeah, it's my
because
Apple Notes.
yeah, yeah, exactly, in Apple Notes. But like that's the thing. Like those ideas are then going to inspire you later when you actually have a problem that you're trying to solve, and you're like, what if I use that idea that I had for that other game that I'm never gonna make? and you just try it out and it works. Like those are the ideas that you're going to bring to the table. So being able to experience life is going to give you a unique take on the kind of stresses and the kind of joys that life is going to throw at a person.
Mm-hmm. I mean, hey, it's the game industry. We got to deal with some challenges and some rewards.
Yeah, exactly.
So what have you been working on lately?
Been working on the Ruined King. I can't say too much about it outside of like what's already been shown. We've got like a trailer that's up on YouTube, both a gameplay and a reveal trailer. And unfortunately,
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm glad that people are excited about it. Like the league community is super, super passionate about all of the characters, and they're super excited to see these champs together. Some of them are confused, like, why are they together? And some of them are just like, I love that they're together, and I love that huge like spread of people that are like angry or happy. I think it's going to be great. Unfortunately, the game had to be pushed back a little bit to COVID, unexpected like pressures. I think we did really, really well in adapting to working from home, but there's just things that you lose when you're not all in the office together. There's not enough opportunity to be like, I had this idea, or like, come over to somebody's desk and talk over something that's not working. So I'm really looking forward to being able to go back into the office and like, taking this all the way. But we're making really good progress, and the game looks really great. I'm really excited for people to see it.
Yeah, I'm excited for you guys. Hopefully everything is awesome. Everybody loves it, and the reception's good. And yeah. So for somebody who wants to be a lead programmer, what advice would you give them to like as they move up? Like how can they get to that position?
I would say if you want to be a lead programmer, start out by being aware of like the people around you and what they're trying to accomplish, and making sure that like you're doing things to try to support them. So like this goes back to the whole like act like the job you want. Is your coworkers, your fellow programmers, your fellow artists, the people around you that are trying to make things are going to run into problems, and they're going to be trying to achieve their own things. And the more that you do in your job, and the more that you focus on making sure that you make other people's lives easier, the better off you're going to, like, the team is going to be as a whole, and you are going to look as like the person that is reliable, the person that is considerate, the person that is looking out for the people around you. There's also like making sure that the features that you work on, if you have anything that you're doing, try to take it all the way. Not necessarily if you're prototyping or if you're in alpha stage, but as you get towards the end of the game, as you ship something, or as you get towards the end of a project, make sure that you've dotted the I's and crossed the T's. That's the other way around. That you look at a feature as not just something that like you've been asked to do, and it there's the task and it's been implemented and that's it, it's done, but rather like, is it achieving the things that they've asked you to do? Like, is it achieving the things that they want? Because sometimes they'll tell you like, we want this slider to do this when you click the mouse, and we want the button to make the sound when you press it, and you can do that. And then when you try it out, you're going to notice that it's bad, or it doesn't feel good, or it doesn't feel like it's right. Get feedback from the people around you and be like, hey, I noticed this just doesn't work. I don't think it's ready. I don't think it's complete. I don't think it's doing what we wanted it to do. What can we do to change it? How can we change it? And having that dialogue going where, you're demonstrating that you are paying attention to the things that you're asked to do, and you are wanting them to be when you hand it off, you want it to be the best that it can be. That is somebody that people are going to trust with more things. That is something that people are going to see and acknowledge as like, this person is aware, this person is cognizant. This person is passionate. This person has attention to detail. And those are the things that, wind up having people give you more responsibility. Another thing is also, let's say that you're a senior programmer or a programmer and you're just kind of stuck where you are and you're doing these things, but like nobody's really giving you any opportunity to step up. Talk to your lead and be like, hey, I would like more leadership opportunities. This is something that I want. Don't be afraid to ask for it, and then be like, what do you think I need to work on in order to, be like ready for this role? Because if ideally, if you've said like, hey, I'm interested in, becoming a lead, what is it that you feel I need to work on as a programmer in order to like be at that place? Odds are, if you already are at that place, they're going to be like, oh, okay, sure. You want to be a lead? Great. We'll make you a lead. Or we'll find an opportunity to make you a lead. And if that you are not ready, or they think that you're not ready, they know what it is that you're not ready for, and they're going to tell you what it is. Usually the people above you are pretty well aware of the things that you're doing well and the things that you're doing less well at, and they're happy to communicate that with you. They'll probably bring it up during a year review, but sometimes year reviews are really impersonal and people don't really, they don't give you the whole story, or, that's kind of like surface level, like, hey, you're doing well, we're going to give you a 1% raise or whatever. But if you like specific, like ask and ye shall receive, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
look for law of attraction.
Yeah, like you want to like look for, you want to make it clear that there's something that you want and that you're something that you're striving for. And then when they tell you like, hey, we need you to work on this thing, work on it. Like try to own it. Like whatever they tell you that you're not as good at, don't be offended by it. Don't be sad by it. Don't feel frustrated by it. Be like, okay, this is a thing I need to work on. They are seeing that I'm not as good at it. Is like, maybe that's not something that you feel you're that bad at, but like try to identify like, okay, how can I make myself, at least like what things about what I'm doing right now are making it so that it's not clear that this is something that I understand or something that I'm doing. Like, do I need to make my work more visible? Do I need to like, make it more clear when I'm working with other people? Do I have a temper? There was a long while where I had a really bad temper. I was very grumpy. I was the grumpy programmer. And I eventually learned that like actually that's really grating and it frustrates people and it makes people feel like they can't trust me or talk to me about things. Damn. And I didn't want that.
Were you really that angry? Like you'd be like mad at people and they'd be like, don't talk to him, he's angry.
I mean, a little bit, or like I like throw a tantrum, and I think the thing is like I'm Mexican, not that like that's I'm Northern Mexican, so like not that that's an excuse, but I think that our culture in the North is a lot more like expressive and like out there and forward and like aggressive. And over time, I've had to learn, like, hey, like, not everything is a party. You have to, like, not yell and not get super excited about everything.
Not everything's a party. I like that.
Yeah, not everything is a party. You have to calm down. And I think that, like, just I was really, really explosive with my emotions because it was kind of just a part of like, what I'd grown up doing. And I've learned to kind of chill out and be like a lot more like laid back and not get too flustered about things and like break things down. If something is happening and like I feel passionate about it, I'm like, okay, well, let's think about this tactfully. How can I get what I want out of this situation? Instead of like just explode and be like, no, wait, we can't do that.
Wait, come back.
Yeah. So like there's just a lot of moments where you have to like get better at being, self-aware. And identifying like what are the things like they've given me this feedback. How do I take it to heart, and how do I really try to improve on that?
I love everything you said because I was going to ask you, but you already mentioned it. Like being self-aware is very important because I'm not sure how you learned. Was that always you, or did you pick that up like in time, or you were like, hey, the actions I'm taking aren't really giving me the results. I should probably be more aware.
Oh no, well, yeah. I mean, I was always a little aware that I had a temper, and when I asked for like a leadership opportunity at Airship, like I brought it up and I was like, hey, I know I have a temper. And they were like, yeah, you do. And I knew at that moment that I was just like, okay, That is a thing I should work on. That is definitely, if I'm going to be a lead, I can't do that anymore. People have to be able to trust that when they come to me, I'm not going to suddenly explode on them, but rather like that I will listen to them, I will make them feel heard, and I will take their feedback very like seriously.
You had to let go of the ego.
Yeah.
I know some people have a hard time letting go of the ego, and they're like, "Oh no, I gotta finish this project, or my work's the best, or my advice is." It's like, it's okay. You just take a second to take the feedback and acknowledge it, or not acknowledge it, but like, you have to have a moment where you just say, "Let go of who you thought you were, and to become the person you want to become."
Exactly. No, that's a really good way of saying it. Yeah.
But yeah, so this has been a lot of fun. I know you have to go soon, so we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah. But it has been a lot of fun. Thank you, KB.
Yeah. So one of the best things that we do at GameDev.tv is like do these challenges at the end of the lectures to make sure people actually learn what they need to learn from the tutorials. So with the podcast, do the same thing. So I usually ask my podcast guests to come up with a little small challenge. Could be about anything. It can be program related, art related, whatever you want to come up with.
Okay. I guess a good challenge, I think, is this is something that I recently tried, so I'm going to recommend it to other people. You are working on a particular discipline most of the time. I challenge you to go out and learn like at least the first steps of some other discipline. So like if you are a programmer, I recommend that you do like the Blender 3D modeling challenge, or you like learn to make a donut. If you're if you're a 3D modeler, I recommend that you do like some of those intro to like programming tasks, like especially like on Apple Playgrounds or something like that. To, like look for something that you've got access to and give that a try. Or Everyone Can Code is another good resource. And if you're or if you're a musician, you can try one of those things. Or if you like pick something that is just something that seems interested, that you like music, you like programming, you like art, but you don't do it, just give it a try. And just see what the experience is like. Because you might learn a thing or two. You might learn that you really enjoy it. You might learn that you're not as bad at it as you thought. I learned that I was not as bad at 3D modeling than I thought. I thought I was really bad at it because I had a hard time with it in college. But then, like, I did some 3D sculpting, and like my friends were just like, "Hey, that looks really good." And I was like, "What? No, I'm terrible at 3D.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at 3D." And they were like, "No, it's really good." So I went and I tried to like 3D model it in Blender, and it worked. And I was like super excited. Like just try something that you haven't tried before as a novel experience. Don't don't exhaust yourself on it. Just do it until it stops being fun. But do something new, because doing something new is always fun and enriching.
I agree 100%. But yeah, great challenge. And again, thank you, Andres, for coming on, for talking about your amazing story, programming, art, being like self-aware. Just there's so many gems in this episode. I can't wait till everybody listens to it.
Yeah, I hope so. Thanks, KB.
So for the end of the episode, I will hand the mic to you to do any last minute shout outs, to do any last minute quotes, tips, whatever you want to leave the fans with, and the mic's all yours. And thanks for coming on.
Sure. Well, everybody, I guess thinking. Yeah, my recommendation to all of you who are trying to get into the games industry: really focus on like finding the thing that you love. Finding the thing that's fun, because the games industry is fun. Like, games are fun. People play games to have fun. If you're not having fun making games, people aren't going to have fun playing it. So try to make sure that you're having a good time. Try to make sure that you're, being good to the people around you as well, that you're working together in a team. Like, you want to be the person that people want to remember and work with in the future. They will reach out to you, and if they have a job opportunity, they see a job opportunity that they think that you'll be a good fit for. So take advantage of your community, take advantage of your friends, and have a good time.
Well, that's it. Thanks for listening. You can find all courses at GameDev.tv or in the show notes at a discounted price. Get started with your game development journey today.